Hello there everyone, welcome back to another video. It's been a while, I'm sorry, life has just been insane, but I've finally been able to sit down and honestly I've missed so much stuff across One Piece and Star Wars, I don't even know where to begin. So instead I'm going to be making a video that is completely unrelated. And I feel like might actually, I don't know, well, I mean, a lot of people who'll be watching this probably won't have seen my channel before, I imagine. So to you, hello. I've waffled on for 30 seconds. What am I talking about this? What am I talking about here? I imagine that I will have clickbaited the absolute shit out of the title of this video. But I think it's true. I think I'm going to have called it the rarest Brandon Sanderson collectibles in existence. I think that's, well, something along those lines. I think that's what I've called it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these down here because my wife got back from America today, and she brought with her the last piece I was needing for this little collection, which was my second binder. So you know, the old American postcode hack to avoid loads of loads of import taxes. I'm just kidding, of course. I wasn't avoiding import taxes at all. That was a joke. Government. Anyway. Here we go. We have Stormlight Lost Tales. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to story time what these are after I kind of show them off. Because I think... these are very cool, but I feel like it's quite an elaborate story to explain how I got them all. But what I'll start off by saying is I'll start off with the boring one, and then very briefly I'll start off with the boring one, and I'll get onto the interesting one, which you can see is signed by Brandon. So for those of you who maybe don't know what these are, Dragonsteel Nexus 2024, which is the annual Brandon Sanderson convention, which was it's to celebrate the launch of one of his books. This one in particular was Stormlight 5, so pretty big book launch if you are following Sanderson at all. It's a pretty big one, and I've just now noticed this is a bit damaged, but whatever. Basically, he released it. He released these trading cards. So when you arrived at the convention, you checked it, and you got 2 packs of what were called Lost Tales. And actually, I have a sealed box which I'll go grab. Okay. Well, this isn't a sealed box, but this is the one box I did buy. So this is what they sort of look like. I haven't got any of the booster packs saved, which I wish I had, but oh well. And so you've got 2 packs of those, and each one came with, I think it was 15 cards. And basically what they had done is they had created this, they had written, Brandon and a couple of the other writers, like Isaac Stewart and Dan Wells, had written 3 new stories, 2 of which were canon to the Stormlight Archive and the Cosmere in general, and 1 which was non. And they had printed them into trading cards. And on the back, there was like these sort of, I don't know what the word for 9 of them, but these sort of panel artwork. So they collected up. So they picked up. So you had a full story, plus you had artwork on each one. And I'm not gonna go through all of it because I feel like these are quite cheap to get these base rarity stories. Tip you off on what's in the other binder. And I don't want to spoil it, but I'll show you. There's a couple of my favourites, which I will show you. So the first one of my favourites is this one. This is one of my favourites. And then the next one is this one. This is from the Yasna story. And I'll show you. I can't actually, so I have to give you some more context before I show you the next one of my favourites. So the next thing, so you could earn more of these packs, and I haven't got it with me. I really prepared for this video well, didn't I? So you got sort of like little passport, and as you went around and you did panels and stuff, you'd get stamps in the passport. And as you filled up the pages in the passport, you would be able to get more and more packs. And I think the maximum per person was 16. And once you completely blacked out the passport, so like stamping every single possible one you can get, you also got a little pin, which they ran out of very early on the final day, which I thought was pretty poor. But anyway. There were, so in total, each one of these stories was 54 cards. So there were 112, sorry, 162. I can do maths, I promise. 162 of these base rarity stories, and these were all pretty common. There were some printing errors, but I sort of won't go into all that detail now. There's actually quite a lot to talk about. that happened subsequently, and I'll yap about that for a bit. There were also foil cards, which we'll come on to in a moment. Actually, I have one here. There were foil cards, which were exactly the same. So this was Lopen 36. So if we go to 36, you can see here is the, can you see, there's the normal version, and then there's the foils. So these are actually like very, very shiny foils. I actually did a really good job on these. So there were foils, and then there were what were called nonsense cards. So nonsense cards looked like this, and they basically had this big stamp on it that said 100% nonsense, and there were quite a few of them. This may have tipped you off that I collected them all here. And we'll sort of talk about this in a moment. And this is now going to be my third favourite, which is this. So these were all the nonsense ones for this chasm-themed story, but they actually formed this exclusive piece of artwork on the back, which was, I think this was probably the most in demand of the nonsense sets. And these came 1 in 2 packs. Foils were 1 per pack guaranteed, and then pretty much a 50-50 shot getting one in a pack, an extra one. So it was about 3 across 2 packs on average. And then the final thing, which you can see here forming this lovely artwork of the Herald Batar, were the 9 heralds. So this is where there's gonna be a lot to explain, but we'll get there. For some reason, it's decided to do that. So there we go. So that's the base rarity stuff, and I'm now going to show you. This is not that rare. Lots of people managed to get a full set, including the nonsense, including the heralds. I say lots, probably a few hundred, I would guess. So not like that many, but like a good number. I would say a good number. And in particular, since the convention ended, all the remaining stock of the cards went on sale on the website. There's a huge amount of trading that happened in community discords. So I'm sure lots and lots of people managed to do this. This is not the rare bit. The rare bit is this. So let's put that away, and let's start off by saying I'm going to be just yapping a lot in this video and going through my experience, because I think it'll be just nice to have it in one place and sort of regale people who probably will care if you're watching this video with the tale of how this happened, because it honestly was pretty nuts. So things to know also about this trip is it was my first time going to Utah. It was my first time going to a Dragonsville convention. And I went with 2 mates, and honestly, everything that could have gone right went right. We got onto the Wild Hopper Wall, for those of you who know what that is. We met Brandon at that. I got into the Magic Draft, which will come back into the story, and some Lightning signings. I don't know if you can see here, I got this playmat signed by him as well. So a lot of stuff went right, but this is where things get crazy. So, okay, I've kind of teased it, but as you might have been able to deduce, this is a full foil set, and I will go through all of this because I think it looks incredible, and I don't think, as far as I know, there might be 1 or 2 other full foil sets out there that people have collected, but I don't think any will be like this. So there's still a few other cards I want to get signed, but I've got a lot of them signed. So as we go through here, I'll sort of like tell you about what happened. So going through at the start of the convention, I'm a big TCG guy, as you'll have noticed from my channel. So when this was sort of announced, it was like all 3 of us who were there were like, oh, this is absolutely our bag. This is incredible. And we were very enthusiastically sort of going around, trading, trying to figure out even what was available, because the heralds were actually not advertised. And actually you had to sort of discover them yourself and like talk to like the staff to kind of get more information about them, because they were not really spoken about everywhere. They were very much the chase pieces. And in particular, I distinctly remember the reaction when we realised that, oh, the heralds can come in foil too, and sort of the enormity of the full set. So, I was counting. So the whole thing, all in all, is something like 230 cards, I think, 220 something cards in all, and all are available in foil. So by, I think, near the end of the first day, my group had sort of deduced that, okay, the heralds are probably something we should focus on if we're trying to get them, because at the moment they're not super in demand, but our anecdotal experience was it's about you get one herald in every 4 packs. That ended up not being exactly true. So we should probably focus on trading for those, because doing that maths based on a maximum of 16 packs per person means that, even the 3 of us together combining our efforts weren't going to be guaranteed to get a full herald set, considering that, we would have gotten 12 between us. There's 9 unique ones, and we very likely were going to get duplicates rather than a full, or 9 unique. You'll see this is signed by Dan Wells. And also, sorry, just to flag here as well, another signature. The end story here is signed by Brandon Sanderson. The artwork on the Yasna stories is absolutely my favourite. This was a very popular card. Can't imagine why. I was very tempted to ask Brandon to sign that one. I'm glad I didn't. It would have been funny, but maybe next time. So we're sort of all feverishly trading, and I think near the halfway point of day 2, I was like, oh, I've gotten a couple lucky trades, and I managed to pull 1 foil herald, and the idea of a foil herald set seemed something that was maybe achievable. This is probably the nicest looking foil story in my opinion. The red is incredible, and it seemed achievable to me. So I thought, okay, let's go for that. Let's try and do it. And by the end of day 2, I was able to get a full foil herald set. Just going to flag that signed before I give the money shot, because this is why I think this is probably the rarest Sanderson collectible in existence for now, anyway. And I've got a story to tell about how I managed to get all these in foil as well. Because basically, at the end of day 2, I only had these in foil, and I just had a load of stories when I was trying to collect the set. But I wasn't like that fussed about getting. I was like, I'm sure I can get the stories later, but this is what my priority was. So you can see here, I got every single herald signed by Brandon. They're all foil. I've also got 3 on the front signed by the artist, and I also have Herald 7 signed on the back by the artist of Batar, which, I mean, this looks absolutely incredible in foil. Honestly, like, these look so unbelievably good in foil. It is ridiculous. I will pause here to briefly tell you how I got my final one. So I had some lucky trades. I had some very generous trades where people weren't super fussed. I felt like karma was immediately rewarded. Like, I had one moment where I had a Herald 1 spare, and I was trying to trade for whatever, went up to someone, and they were like, oh, I need a Herald 1, I only have a Herald 3 spare. I already had a Herald 3, but I was like, well, doesn't matter to me, either way it's a spare Herald, here you go. And then, like, not even 5 seconds later, I walked over to someone who had a foil Herald 1 and gave me an incredible trade on it. I was literally throwing cards at this woman because she took 3 and was like, that's enough, and I was like, no, it's not enough, that's a foil Herald, literally take as many as you want. So yeah, it felt like very instantly karma rewarded there. And it got to the point where by like 6 or 7 p.m. on the end of day 2 of this 3-day con, I had all of these heralds in foil. I was then able to negotiate a very long-winded trade for Herald 9 in foil, which involved me getting a Herald 9 non-foil to part trade up. So I think it took me like 45 minutes to negotiate that trade at one table with like 3 or 4 people or something. And then Herald 8 was the only one I was missing, which is my favourite. Talonel, my goat, went over to a guy who I'd seen who had it, and who I'd asked if he was interested in getting rid of it, and he said no. And I slapped the binder in front of him and I said, listen, I know you said no. And then I think when I'd spoken to him before, I'd only had like 4 or 5 of the heralds in foil, but I was like, I have 8 in foil. This is the only one I'm missing now. And he was like, right, well, in that case, sure. And he rinsed me, especially, well, I say that obviously in hindsight he didn't rinse me, but like with what we know now about rarities and everything. But at the time, he took something like 35 of my stories, like completed his full sets. It felt like, I was paying through my nose, and I thought, okay, I might not actually finish the stories, but that's fine. This was my main thing. And I had this full set of heralds in foil. And I felt incredible at the end of day 2. Went back to meet my mates, because I'd stayed late, like 2 hours trading or something while they were doing others, while they'd gone out for dinner. So I was very, very happy with that. I will continue on. I also got this signed by Dan. And I actually got the back, and her name escapes me and I feel really bad, but I got the back of these artworks signed by by the artist for all of these artworks was there, so I got her to sign it as well. Got as many people as I could really sign this who had worked on it, because I thought it was just incredible. Honestly, the most fun I've had in like a long time. Day 3, I had the most insane thing happened to me ever. So I think now, okay, sorry, I'm going to briefly go back to the Herald's page. So Herald 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns out, because of the way they had been manufactured, the way that the manufacturer had seeded them, basically, whilst the foil Heralds, as far as we could tell, since then, with a lot more boxes opened and data gathered, are pretty much equally rare. Heralds 1 through 6 appeared to be about 1 in every 4 packs, but Heralds 7, 8, and 9 are 1 in 30. And that was because the only time... So these Heralds appeared in place of a nonsense. So it would literally be like... it would be like foil, nonsense, or Herald. And the Heralds would be like the much rarer of those options, but like in one pack you would sort of have that shot. Whereas the 7, 8, and 9 would only appear as the final card in the pack, like not in that sort of nonsense slot, and it was like, you know, literally 1 in 30 packs where these would show up. So yes, there were half as many of them, but yeah, they were very, very rare. And so that ended up being very, very challenging. And what that meant was, near the end of day 2, you kind of saw people going, oh, okay, these are a little bit like, oh, these seem to be rarer. And everyone was, but the theory was just, oh, because of the seeding, but day 3 they'll be abundant because they must just all be in the bottom boxes. It turned out that was not the case. So I remember there was this big trading post area, which was set up in the middle of the convention with like a bunch of the employees their whole job was actually to sit there and trade and just help people complete their stories. But their whole thing was they were saying, like, look, we're going to rinse you on, like, the nonsense on the foils and on the heralds because we don't care about people being able to collect those. We care about people being able to go home with the full set of these stories and, like, be able to read them. That made sense to me. So I remember I waited about 2 hours in the queue right at the start of the day. I must have been probably the 10th or 11th person who went up and spoke to them. And I was probably a bit of a breath of fresh air because I went up saying, no, I don't need any heralds, don't worry, because they had just been turning people away again and again and again. And, you know, it was a very protracted process getting any trades done because it was basically just the boss. You could only trade with this one guy for all these, like, super high rarity, like, you know, in-demand pieces. And I don't know why, but I basically had, like, a load of spare cards I'd collected from me and my 2 mates. And they were like, look, just help us finish our story sets. So I went there, I traded in, I think it was like 5-1 or something, or 4-1, to complete our story sets. And then I had the stack of like 100 cards or 200 cards or something, like a load of cards. And I was like, can I trade in for like foils? Because at that point, like, you know, I have all these stories, I'm not going to do anything with them, I might as well try and get some bling. And the guy basically turned to me, and I'd been there a couple of times, and I guess I'd been quite friendly. He turned to me and he said, look, if you promise me that you will go out there with all those spare stories and you will give them to people who need them, I will, on a 1-to-1 basis, take your non-foil stories and turn them into foils. That was the easiest promise I've made in my life, and I did it. And I honestly couldn't believe my luck. I was like, I don't know. Now, the logic to me, I think, was basically... What had subsequently also been revealed is the stories, number 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54 of every single one of the 3 stories were significantly rarer. As in, you got one of those 18 cards, so those 18 of those high-numbered stories per pack, and that was the slot at the back of the pack where you could potentially get these rare heralds, so that's why they were super rare. There was like this giga rare seed for some reason. And that had basically created this huge bottleneck for lots of people trying to create this to get the stories. And I think his logic was, well, I can get 18 of these stories in a rarity that people are going to want to trade for. No one wanted to trade for. No one was going to trade for these foil ones because basically the ask was insane. The ask would have been literally like, you know, 10 foils for 1. No one was going to do it. So I think that was the logic from his end. I mean, I think also he was just being a giga homie. And I think also part of it was, I saw the stacks of foils they had. They had so many. I think they had at least 15 of almost every single foil. Some they had none of, but like literally hundreds and hundreds of foils sitting there with no interest because everyone was just trying to get the base rarity stuff. So I think that was the logic. So I sat there, you know, for an extra 45 minutes, basically taking everything out of the binder, making sure it was all done, going out, and I think I basically had all of the story foils, bar like 2. So I was so then immediately, obviously, I'm running around the convention going, "Hey guys, I need 2 foils to complete my full story foil set." And I was able to quickly source those, and the people just gave them to me. They were like, "Look, it's 1 story foil. I don't care here," which is obviously like super nice of them. And so I was able to go back to my mates after like 2 hours while they'd been going off and sort of enjoying the convention. And I was doing the trades for them just to get their last story cards, go up to them and go, hey, have a look at this, and sort of handed them my binder. And I remember their jaws were literally on the floor because already, like, I think they had kind of given up on getting the Heralds because of how challenging it had been, or they were sort of feeling like, okay, if we can at least do a base rarity set, that would be nice. Meanwhile, I had somehow managed to get a full foil set. I'd also managed to get the foil of this full Chasm Friend Nonsense page as well, which was a bonus. Now, at this stage, I didn't have anything here. I'd kind of gone, well, look, I've got full foil stories, full foil heralds. What more do I want? I'll come back to this in a little bit. That evening, I went to the map charity draft that Brandon Sanderson has at every one of the conventions. I'd managed to get into it, which was very lucky. And I sort of went up to him at the end and was like, hey, I know this is quite cheeky. I know you're just signing one thing per person. I just sort of showed him my binder with the full foil thing and was like, would you mind signing a few of these cards? And he kind of looked at me like, I don't know how you've done this, but sure. So I asked him to sign each of my heralds, to sign the final story of each, the final page, his final card of each story, plus the front of the binder, which he did, which I was very grateful for. And yeah, that was incredible. So subsequently, when I got back to the UK and a lot of this sort of stuff came out about like the rarities and the difficulties there were and all this sort of stuff, they then put boxes on sale. And at this point we still had very imperfect information, but we knew like there was something up. Like, okay, the cards, like the rare heralds didn't show up in force, so either they're stuck in the shipping container, they didn't make it there, or they're just rarer. And I bought 2 of these boxes when they went up on sale. They were $100 each. And I bought 2, fully intending to open one to get myself as much trade fodder as I could, because I thought, you know what, sod it, I'm going to go for the full foil nonsense set as well. I'm so close to a full foil everything, I might as well. And hoping to keep one sealed, and I do still have the sealed box over on my display case. And I also got a great deal where I bought 22 foil nonsenses, I think for $100 shipped, which subsequently turned out to be a pretty good price. Like not super cheap or anything, but like a good price. Like I was very happy I did that because that also gave me the motivation, because that was about half. That was half the work done. And yeah, so I was able to trade for the full all of these. Part of that ended up being I actually turned out to get very lucky and get a foil misprint while I was at the convention, which I was able to trade for a foil Herald 8, which I was then able to trade for like a load of the nonsense foils I needed, plus a Herald 9, as part of a Herald 8 base rarity, which ended up obviously being like very, very helpful to getting me the full set. So I was able to then go and actually get everything. And actually, I was able to maintain like a little foil Herald 2 here. So the binders are full in theme. And this was obviously, Nail is one of my favourite Heralds. If this could have been like Talonel, it would have been, but Lamau, like, I do think it's nicer that I get Batar on the back there. But yeah, so that's sort of the story of how I managed to get this. And I'll sort of sit here on the most impressive page while I finish off this video. So when I say, like, I think this is the rarest Brandon Sanderson collectible ever, all of that is sort of coming out of how challenging it ended up being to actually get these sets. Like, so I think, like, we have a lot of data. I think, like, we have, like, a total population count. And, like, if you run the numbers, in theory, there are 800 full sets of all of this out there. In theory, right? Like, if you were able to just go and get everything together, there would be 800 full foil sets available out there. Obviously, like, there is no way in hell that you would get even close to that number together. My guess is there's probably... I know there's at least one other person who says they have one. I'm guessing there's probably 10 to 50 people out there who have a full foil set. I don't know how many of those would also have been bothered to go out and, like, complete the base rarity set. In particular, seeing as... oh, okay, sorry. I'm being a bit of a fraud right now because I'm waiting for these cards to show up in the post, but they're so common. Ugh, you caught me. But whoever's watching 25 minutes into this video deserves to catch me. Because in particular, these cards at the moment, these Herald 7, 8, and 9 are selling for $150 online. So, you know, they're selling for stupid money because there's no supply. I have no way of hazarding a guess at how much this is worth. Anyway, so I think there's very few people who have that, and also I think none of them are going to have it this much. None of them did it at the convention, which for me is a personal memory in why I would never sell this. Like, you would have to offer me like enough money that I would be a complete idiot not to take it. Like, if you offered me 6 figures, okay, I would be very stupid not to sell this for 6 figures. But you know, I'm not hurting for cash, so I wouldn't really sell it. And the fact I got to do this at the convention, the fact that I got it all signed by Brandon, the look in particular I remember on Dan Wells' face when I went up and I asked him to sign stuff, and I was like, yeah, so I've done this full foil thing, and he was like, how have you done that? Like, because no one wanted to sell, by the way. That was the other thing. At this point I'm just yapping, so you know, thanks for watching if you if you're clocked out. But yeah, like he was like, how, why, what? How have you done that? No one wanted to sell because there was like, the thing was, $20, $30, $40, $50, whatever you offered at the convention, in particular for these, like, for at the time, everyone was like, what am I going to do with $50, right? Like, I kind of want to complete the set. And obviously I'm sure if you'd offered someone like $100, $200, right? Like, if you had gone up to someone and offered $100 cash for one of these foil heralds in the moment on the day, and now they're selling for like 200, like, they probably would have taken them, like, probably. But no one was. I mean, you know, it was very hard at the time to even have any idea of how much these sort of things would be. So yeah, I mean, that's it basically. There's actually a lot. If you go down the rabbit hole, there's so much interesting stuff about like how the production ended up going a bit wrong, and like the specific rarity distributions, and like all this data that got collected. But now I think I'm very, very delighted to say that I have completed the set, obviously allowing for those last few comments to come in. And actually, more than that, I have all these here of normal stories as well, where I'm waiting a few more to come in as well, which are additional full sets which I can gift to people. So, you know, if you're if I know you, and I know you like Sanderson, and you didn't go, spoiler alert, I'm probably gifting you one of these for your birthday. So now you know. But yeah. Overall, it was an incredible experience. I don't think they're going to do another one of these for a while. I think they will have learned a lot, and I think in particular making sure they nail like the production. So that's also part of why I think this is going to be the rarest. I don't think it will ever be this hard again to do, because like they're not going to want to have this thing where like, yes, they wanted like the bigger issue was probably the high numbered story cards being rare, but like the fact that the heralds were unbalanced was not ideal. They wouldn't want that in future. And honestly, if these heralds weren't that hard to get, it probably would have been really doable to just get the herald sets. It wouldn't have been anywhere near as challenging. I am very confident that in 2028, so what, like 2-3 years from now, when Mistborn Era 3 starts, I would be very surprised if they didn't do like a Mistborn Era 1 version of this story deck. I feel like that's a slam dunk. It would be insanely popular. You can think about the sort of characters they would do. You know, how many people were there in Kelsey's crew actually? Come to think of it, there may be 9. There may be 9. Depends on how much you extend the crew, but I think there are 9 actually. Anyway, I've yapped. Thanks for watching. I guess this is just a show off video, but I just kind of wanted to share this with people who would probably find it really cool. At least as much as I find it really cool. Now I should probably actually read the stories. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, I mainly make videos about Star Wars Unlimited and the One Piece trading card game, but I'll be making videos about the Gundam card game this year. I'll be making Vanguard videos again when a certain collab set comes out. And just generally I make videos about card games and stuff I'm interested in. So if you liked listening to me yap for the last half an hour, sorry, then drop a sub, like the video if you enjoyed it, and yeah. Also, Doug, who helped me out at the trading post, if you somehow see this, I tried to go back and find you, and I bought a little gift for you to thank you for basically being like hooking me up in the most insane way possible, and I wasn't able to find you. Apparently you'd left. Sort of, I think 5 or 6 p.m. I tried to find you on the Saturday, whatever the last day was. So if you see this, send me a message and I will post it to you. Thank you for being a top lad. Right, that's it. Thanks. Bye.